as promised, I'm putting together this Git tutorial to show you how to do the GitHub steps, the terminal steps, and then use everything in VS Code, and then commit everything back. First thing we're going to do is we're going to open Chrome, go to GitHub, and you should get a screen that looks similar to mine. Find New, and I'm going to call this VS Code GitHub tutorial. Obviously, you would name your repo whatever project you're working on. Mark it as public. I'm going to check the add a README file box. That makes sure that the repo gets started with files in it, so that you don't have to go through the extra steps of linking your computer to the repo when you clone it out. And then I click on Create Repository. That creates the repository for me. I then go into code, and for you guys, you're going to use HTTPS. I'm going to use SSH, but for everyone else, it's probably HTTPS. You're going to copy it, and then you're going to open up Terminal, and you're going to do cd space /sites, and that brings you into the sites directory that we set up at the beginning of the semester. And once you're in there, you're going to do git clone, and then you're going to paste in what you copied from GitHub. It'll look a little bit different than what I have here, I expect, but the general concept is the same. And then you hit enter. And once you see an output similar to mine, it actually has created or cloned the repository on your computer by creating a directory after the name of the repository. So in this case, the name of my repository was VSCode GitHub tutorial, and it says cloning into, and then this is the name of the folder. So if I do cd space VSCode -tab, it auto-completes it for me because I hit the tab on the keyboard. You could also type the whole thing out by hand if you like. I hit enter, and now I'm in my GitHub repo on my computer. So I do code space dot and hit enter, and this opens up VS Code. There's my README file. So everything is all set. I right click on the README file, and I click on Open in Integrated Terminal. And I need to create my index.html and my style.css. And I can do that by, in the terminal, typing touch space index.html space style.css. And I hit enter. And that creates these two files for me. After I've done that, I'm going to go and get the templates for the HTML and for the CSS. And I'm just going to copy and paste them in. So for the HTML, I'm looking at it, I click the raw button, I select everything on the page, copy it, and then I go back into index.html and I hit paste and save. Then I go into the CSS, I hit raw, I select everything, copy it, go back into VS Code, go into the style.css, I hit paste. You see this circle here? All of the files do this. When you create a change in the file and you don't save it, it shows up as a circle. As soon as I hit save, so I'm hitting Command S, now the circle's gone, the file is saved. So I had shown you guys in class the drag and drop method for committing files to GitHub, but VS Code actually has tools built into it to make it much simpler. You'll find that it's easier to delete files this way, create directories, that kind of thing. So pretend that I've done the work, right? Everything in these files is ready to go. I'm ready to put them on GitHub. If you look on the left-hand side of the VS Code toolbar, you've got the two pieces of paper that indicate the navigation for files. You've got a search, and then you've got this three-dot line thing. If you're familiar with Superman, it kind of looks like Brainiac symbol. This is actually source control. This is where GitHub is integrated into VS Code. If you guys remember in class, I told you that GitHub actually made VS Code, so it's no surprise that they put their tools right into the software. So if you click on this symbol, you actually get a list of changes. These are files that have been created, deleted, or modified. So if I'm ready to put them on GitHub, I can. I go over the index.html file, and to the right I've got these three buttons. Open the file, which is already open, I don't need to do that. Discard the changes, which will revert my file to the last version it was committed to. Since I've never committed before, I definitely don't want to do that. And then here, this plus is stage changes, and that's what I want. By staging changes, what you're saying is that these changes will be committed to my computer when I commit. You have a copy of the GitHub repo in GitHub, and then that clone process puts a copy of the repo on your computer. When we work, we actually commit to our own computer, and then there's another step where we actually push what's on our computer to GitHub. So you want to stage the changes for each one, and then up here you have this checkbox. And when you hover over it, you see it says commit. That's what you want to do. You want to commit. So I hit the checkbox, and it asks me for a commit message, right? It's asking me, I have to log what I did or what I changed in these files so that if I ever need to go back in time, I know what happened when. So here I'm just going to say initial commit because it's the first time I'm committing, and I hit enter. And that's it. Now there are no changes. And the reason for that is because everything I've done has been committed. If I make another change, and I hit save, the file then shows up on the changes list. So now I know, okay, I've touched this file since my last commit. You'll also see the file is now lit up in yellow. And it's got the letter M for modified. Now I obviously don't want to keep this change, so I'm just going to revert. That's what this guy does. And it put my file back to what it was at the last commit. So now that I've done this, everything is committed and saved, but only on my computer. If you look at GitHub, there's nothing here yet. So I need to go back into VSCode, and these three dots up here, I click on it, and I have the option to pull, push, clone, checkout to, and then a bunch of other things. I want to push. I'm pushing it from my computer to GitHub. So I hit push. It's done. I come back here. I refresh. My files are there. Nice and simple. Now, that gets the files onto GitHub, but I still need to set GitHub up to show me the web page itself. So I have to go into settings. And then I scroll down on the left-hand side, it says Pages. So I click on that, and I take this drop-down and I change it to Main under Source, and I hit Save. And what that does is that creates a web page out of the contents of your main branch, which is probably the only branch you're going to work in. Once I've done that, I'm going to click this link. Now bear in mind, it may not be there right away. See, it's not there yet. When you push changes to your repo, GitHub sees that you've made changes, and it has to work in the background to turn them into a web page, and sometimes that can take some time. So when you first set this up, it may 404, and it may stay 404 for several moments. If you create changes to your files and you push those changes, it could take the same amount of time for those changes to show up on GitHub. So if you're not seeing your changes after, an hour or so, then you reach out to me and say, hey, this still isn't working right, because then the odds are something didn't get pushed correctly. But if you've only given yourself, 2-3 minutes and it's still not showing, be patient. GitHub has a lot of users on it. It's doing this for a lot of users, so it could take several minutes for it to get to you. And I just refreshed. It's a blank page because I didn't do anything, but you see how it says HTML skeleton up here? That's how you know that everything uploaded, everything is working correctly. Now if I go back into Visual Code Studio and I want to just give myself an output, right? So h1 hello world, exclamation point, and I also, let's see, we'll wrap this in a container. And then we're also going to do a photo fast. save. I go into my index, my style sheet. I'm going to create a rule that makes all images display block, and their width is always 100%, just like we talked about in class. This is how we get responsive images. And then my rules for my container are a max width of 800 pixels, a margin of 0 auto so that it puts all the negative space equally on the left and right, giving us a visual center. And I'm going to give it 10 pixels of padding. And then I'm going to create another rule for things that have both the class container and the class photo. I'm going to make that max width 1200 pixels, and I'm going to make the padding 0. I hit save. I right click on index.html. I click on reveal in Finder. I right click on it again in Finder, and then I click on Google Chrome. Okay, so something's not quite right. The step that I missed is linking my style sheet to my index.html. So I take this, I copy line 13, I go down to line 16, which is just after the comment that says your style should be called here. I paste in the link tag, I paste in the link element again. I change the href on the second one to style.css. I hit save. I go back into Chrome and refresh. Now it looks right. So now I'm ready to push this up to GitHub again. So the way that I do that is I go back into source control and I stage the changes for index.html and style.css. I hit the checkbox to commit. Updates, content and styles so that I have text, containers, and photo containers. Enter. I have no changes. Everything got committed. I go to the 3 dots. I hit push. It finishes pushing. I go back into GitHub. I refresh. It shows that I last pushed 17 seconds ago, so that seems about right. I look at my index.html. I see the reference to the style.css. I see my new markup. I go into style.css. I see the image styles, the container styles, and the photo container styles. And if I refresh, I see my changes on the GitHub webpage that my repo creates. I hope this helps. This should be a nice end-to-end instructions for working on any and all projects and committing and pushing to GitHub. I'm available on Slack if you have any questions.